Welcome back to another empowering episode of Morning Motivation with Matthew. This morning, we're diving deep into a topic that resonates with us all: overcoming fear to achieve success. Let me say that again: overcoming fear to achieve success. We talked a little bit about this the other week in our last episode, with how I kind of shared a little bit about my journey and my return back into podcasting and what that looked like for me over the last few months. And some things that I was kind of navigating through, per se, as I began to kind of prepare myself to come back into the podcasting world. But I wanted to dive a little bit deeper in sharing a little bit of my experience, maybe even some experience of other individuals that I've seen or have followed, as well as maybe giving a little bit of biblical context behind it. But before we get started, given that we're going to be talking about overcoming fear to achieve success, I wanted you to just take a moment of reflection. In your time of reflecting, I want you to think about whether in the past or currently, if you are reeling with the thought of some fear in order to achieve some level of success. I want you just to sit there and think about it for a moment. Think about if you didn't necessarily have the courage, because, I mean, let's be honest, fear oftentimes it's inevitable, right? It's something that we are, generally speaking, going to have to deal with, right? And so it's really up to us to figure out the way that we're going to kind of navigate through that fear. And we're going to have some level of fear in terms of with anything and everything that we're hoping to accomplish in life. I think it's a natural instinct, right? I think it's just something that oftentimes it could be a stumbling block for us, of something that we're attempting to navigate through. But I want you to think about, and you thinking about your fear, right? And you thinking about you wanting to be successful. Maybe you're kind of thinking about, like, what level of impact am I supposed to have in this thing that I'm going after, right? Or, oh God, I've been working and toiling and really putting in the work behind the scenes in order for me to be able to accomplish this goal that I'm setting out to accomplish. I try to identify the impact. Who am I supposed to impact? Who are my people, right? Who's my tribe? Who are the people that I'm supposed to go after? Where am I going to make my mark on the world? And I'm going to be able to make enough money through this thing that I'm going to be able to walk away from my job or to be able to take care of my family effectively. Am I going to be able to go after my dreams and my visions and my hopes and my desires, etc.? We all have this level of fear, but I want you to take into consideration that your desire, right, to go after something or to move mountains and really make your mark in the world, it's going to be driven by fear, right? It's going to be driven by fear. But if you don't do it, then you also have to deal with the level of regret that we deal with anytime that there's something that we really want to accomplish. And I shared this in the last podcast, that one of the reasons that I decided to come back to this microphone to be able to share and uplift and inspire and motivate people is because I didn't want to live with any regret. I didn't want to live with any regret. I think oftentimes I've done things in the past, right? I've had a lot of different businesses that I've done. And I've done things in the past, and there was a point in time where I stopped doing things, right? And I took a long pause from doing anything, much of anything, because of maybe what other people said, or because maybe I wasn't necessarily getting the results that I was expecting to receive. Whatever the case may be, I took a pause because I was afraid of what people were going to say. I was afraid of trying something new right after I had tried all of these other things. I was literally afraid because most of those things that I had done, I had gained a little bit of traction, right? But when I wasn't necessarily seeing the manifestation of the progression that I was expecting to see, I decided to stop, right? And so I stopped because I'm like, I need a break. I feel like I'm wasting so much time, energy, effort, money, resources into these things, right? That I feel that I was called to do. But now I'm stopping and doing them because of self doubt, because of my inability to feel like it's going to be successful. Am I going to be able to take care of my family? Like I said before, am I going to be able to walk away from my job? And so I want you to just take a moment of reflection, um, and just to kind of think about something that you're really trying to move the needle on. And I want you to think about what's in front of you. What I want you to literally, I want you to visualize what is in front of you. And I want you to put on your blinders. And I want you to think about what is it with the thing that you're going after? What would be the consequences or repercussions of you not doing that thing? And I don't want you to think about it in a negative light. I want you to think about it in the most positive light possible. Who are you called to help? Who are you called to go after? Who are you called to lead? What God given talent or gifting did God give you that you are not operating in because of fear of what others think, because of fear of your lineage and the things that they may not have actually accomplished because they too were operating in fear and decided not to go after that thing. Above that, I want you to think about how is it that you are going to overcome this fear in order to achieve success. I want you to think about that for a second. I really want you to ponder on that because the definition of fear, according to dictionary.com, is an unpleasant emotion. An unpleasant emotion caused by the belief that someone or something is dangerous, likely to cause pain or threat, excuse me. For something to be unpleasant, it usually causes discomfort, unhappiness, discomfort. Think about that for a moment. What is it that is causing you discomfort? Because you're in fear of what the outcome might be, as opposed to thinking about shifting through or moving through your uncomfort and taking on the fear that you actually have. I really want you to think about that. I'm thinking about it for myself because I'm saying to myself, Matthew, if you don't do podcasting, if you don't complete your master's degree in counseling, if you don't do whatever else it is that you feel like God is causing you to do, what is the outcome of that? Do you want to leave this world? Thank you, Holy Ghost. Do you want to leave this world on E, right? Where you know that you've done everything that He called you to do? Or do you want to leave this place that we call Earth knowing that you did everything with, and I'm not saying that you have to do it and be just perfect in it. What I'm saying is that you have at least attempted to master the giftings and the callings that God has put in your life. Just think about that for a moment. If you could overcome fear to achieve success, look, I'm talking to myself. Maybe this podcast is strictly for me, right? I'm talking to myself because there are some things that I have decided, or in the past, I've decided not to do out of fear of something happening, out of fear of I'm disappointing someone. But I'm also having to remember that that fear is causing a barrier. It's causing me to not be able to pursue something that has been tugging at me, right? So I want you to think about that for a moment. Think about something that's been tugging at you. Think about something that's been tugging at you. And you're even afraid to do the background things, right? The behind the scene things in order for you to be able to prepare for that thing that's going to really help set you up for life and to be able to bring forth generational wealth for your family because of what someone said to you. Or maybe you've tried something in the past and you didn't necessarily have the success that you wanted to have because people didn't necessarily support you, or people doubted you, or people said something ill against you, and it just completely wrecked your spirit. Think about that for a moment. Fear is an invisible barrier that holds us back from pursuing our dreams. I want to say that again. Fear is an invisible barrier. It's an invisible barrier that holds us back from pursuing our dreams. A barrier is a fence or an obstacle that prevents movement or access. According to dictionary.com, it's a fence or obstacle that prevents movement or access. My goodness. I don't want to be in a place anymore where I have this obstacle in front of me that's preventing me from moving forward or accessing what it is that God has put in me. I think this podcast is for me. I'm going to just talk through it. I'm going to just talk through it because it's really hitting me. It's an invisible barrier that holds us back from pursuing our dreams. It makes me think about when I graduated from high school in 2006 with the intent of going away for college. Going to college, thank you to my grandmother who took me to Detroit. I was going to go to Wayne State. Took me to Detroit so I can take assessment testing. Made sure I was doing everything I needed to do in order for me to be able to go to Wayne State. And then as it was time to start filling out FAFSA paperwork and getting housing, found out that they didn't have any housing available for freshmen. Now, I'm certain that they could have figured it out, right? And I would have been perfectly fine. But as an individual who was transitioning hours away from home, mainly the support of my grandmother more than anything at that time, housing, I can't go all the way to Detroit and not have housing, right? And so it was a barrier in front of me. Now, the blessing in that is that I needed to stay home. I needed to stay home so I can get some discipline. I can get a little whooped, right? God can kind of straighten me out because me going to Wayne State would not have been good for me spiritually. That's the blessing in it. Initially, I didn't see it that way. But, after so many years now, I see it as a blessing that I didn't go. Although housing was that barrier in front of me, and it was not invisible. Okay. But the dream for me was to be able to go into pre-med and then going into community college and starting community college and not doing well in community college. Now, we're in 2024. I graduated in 2006. I completed my bachelor's in 2020, right? So it took me a long time, very long time to mature. Now, for me, I was able to focus on my household and that allowed my wife to be able to go to school full time to get her master's degree, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can go on into that story. But it was a blessing. I feel like I didn't jumped off course. But one thing that I learned, or that I'm learning throughout this, because again, I said that this podcast is for me. When they talk about fear being an invisible barrier that holds us back from pursuing our dreams, what if I told you that fear doesn't have to be the end of the road? It doesn't. If I had allowed my situation to happen with me attempting to go to Wayne State, me not completing my associate's degree and then my bachelor's degree, I wouldn't be in a place to where I could transition rather into my master's degree. I wouldn't be in a place to where, as opposed to me focusing solely on school, I was able to take care of my household, provide stability for my wife and sons, and really set us up in a place to where, now we have options, right? And I'm looking forward to sharing those options in a few months as they unfold. But, we wouldn't be where we are today, right? So I see it as a blessing. But I've realized a long time ago that it wasn't necessarily the end of the road. But what if it could be a catalyst for greatness? Ponder on that for a moment. What if it could be a catalyst for greatness? Let's start by looking at an inspiring journey of none other than herself, Auntie Miss Tabitha Brown. Despite facing fears and uncertainties, she pursued passion for vegan cooking and social media. Eventually, she became a beloved influencer and advocate for compassion and joy. Through it all, though, she didn't let fear dictate her path. Instead, she embraced it as fuel for her journey to succeed. And I was recently watching a video of Tabitha talk a little bit about, Miss Tabitha Brown, rather, talk a little bit about her journey. And we've heard it over and over again. I think I love the most about her is that she does not shy away from telling the truth, but it was in her ability to be able to be her authentic self. Oh my goodness, authenticity. You can't beat it. When you have an opportunity to be able to be your authentic self, God will open up the floodgates for you. But she had an opportunity, and she realized after nearly 20 years in the entertainment industry that, as most African American people, we have to wear multiple hats. But she realized that it was in her inability of being her authentic self that was really holding her back. And once she began to heal and navigate through life and find her voice and be comfortable in her skin, then the opportunities began to present themselves because she learned how to be her authentic self. There's nothing more. There's nothing greater. There's nothing better to where you have the ability and God has given you the grace to be able to walk in your authentic self unapologetically, because she realized that that's who God made her to be. And why am I going to chase after something and try to be something that God did not create for me to be? And I think that's what I love most about her story, is that despite what may have been happening in her industry, right? She chose to make sure that she was being her authentic self. And she embraced that as fuel for her journey to succeed. This was her ability to overcome fear in order to achieve success. The fear was that if she did not present or act in a certain way, she wouldn't have an opportunity for God to be able to elevate her. But when she began to realize that this is who God made me to be, fear and awe, God, do what you do best and allow me to walk into the doors on which you've actually set before me. Another person that we can talk about, who we can draw wisdom from and stories from in terms of biblical figures who faced their fears, was Moses, for example. When called to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, he initially resisted due to fear and self-doubt, as we often do, right? When that fear comes up, we try to talk ourselves out of it, right? That's where that self-doubt comes. God, did you really? Am I here? Is this a voice that I'm hearing, or is this you talking to me, Jesus? Like, I'm really trying to figure this out, right? Yet, with guidance and faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, the invisible. Faith is an invisible barrier. We can't see it. We have to just simply believe, right? And he initially resisted. He resisted due to fear and self-doubt. Yet, with the guidance of faith, he overcame his fears and fulfilled his divine destiny, leading his people to freedom. Leading his people to freedom. He led 600,000 people out of Egypt in the middle of the night. And the beautiful thing is that God did not lead Moses and the Israelites through the enemy's land. Rather, he led them through the desert toward the Red Sea so that they could actually journey to the promised land. Read it in Exodus 14. God led the people, as it says in a word, with a pillar of clouds during the day and a pillar of fire at night. And their ability to follow the incredible sights would remind them that God was always with them, guiding them each step of the way on their journey to the promised land. If he can do it for the Israelites, surely he can do it for you. So think about it. What has God given us so that we can know that he's always with us? What is it that he's given us so that we can always know that he's with us? You might have to answer that question for yourself. I can't necessarily answer it for you. So let me rephrase it. What has God given you so that you can know that he's always with you? Let's move on. Let's talk about David, who faced the giant Goliath with nothing but a slingshot and, as they would say, unwavering faith. A slingshot. It's like bringing a knife to a gun show. So what it literally is, right? Bringing a knife to a gun show. He brought a slingshot to fight a giant, Goliath, and had unwavering faith. Despite his fear, again, despite his fear, as we said earlier, fear is a barrier that holds us back from pursuing our dreams. I don't necessarily think that his dream was to fight this giant, however, but he knew that Goliath was punking everybody. He stepped forward in courage, defeating Goliath and solidifying his place in history as a legendary king of Israel. Think about it. Goliath, every single day, was challenging the Israelites to fight him. He was bigger than everybody else, and as they would say, was extremely fierce, wearing heavy armor with a sword, a spear, and a shield. So nobody was going to fight him. 1 Samuel 17. However, David, a young shepherd boy whose faith was planted in the Lord, was a soldier. He was a soldier with the Israel army. And it was him who decided to go against Goliath. He decided to go against that big old giant. However, he said he was not afraid to fight Goliath. Look, faith that of a mustard seed. Right? But he believed in the Lord, that the Lord would protect him. And he knew that the Lord would especially protect him now in his fighting against Goliath. So he put on Saul's armor. They said it didn't fit in the word, but then he decided to fight without it. And he collected 5 smooth stones and put them in the bag, along with his sling and his staff. And then here go Goliath laughing at him. But he had faith, unwavering faith, despite his fear. These stories teach us that fear is a natural part of the human experience, but it doesn't have to paralyze us. So, how do we overcome fear and succeed? It starts with acknowledging our fears and understanding that they are not insurmountable obstacles, but rather opportunities for growth. Step by step, we can confront our fears, whether it's through seeking support from loved ones, developing skills and knowledge, that's you doing that behind the scenes work, or taking small, calculated risk by embracing discomfort and pushing beyond our comfort zones. We can unlock our full potential and chart a course towards our destiny. But I want you to be aware more than anything that fear still has a cunning way of holding us back. Lies, whispering lies of doubt and insecurity. It's easy to let fear dictate our actions, but remember, the greatest achievements often lie on the other side of fear. I'm a witness to it. So as we journey forward, let's draw inspiration from the courage of Tabitha Brown, the faith of biblical heroes, and countless others who faced their fears and emerged victoriously. Together, let's silence the voice of fear and step boldly into the life we were destined to live. Family, I love you all, and thank you so much for tuning in to Morning Motivation with Matthew. That's all for today's episode. And remember, fear may knock at your door, but it's up to you whether you let it in. Stay encouraged, stay courageous, stay determined, and never underestimate the power of your dreams. Until next time, this is Matthew signing you off, wishing you a fearless and fulfilling journey ahead. I love you.